are literally shaping the planet.
Purpose is the only pathway to a regenerative future.
We have a choice to stay with the status quo or to change.
What is the point of trying to be just resilient when we can actually innovate?
All right, well, listen, I want to begin to close it out here. I hope everyone's had a good day here at Shadow Sun. It's been fantastic. Some of the presentations, I haven't caught all of them, but it's been really informative and useful. And I'm glad to, I guess, bring up the rear here with just maybe a thought exercise around pilots and how that term is used and why we use it so much and why that may not be the best solution to advance adaptation of real estate technology. So this is something we've thought about a lot at PointGuard. And just a little bit about me. I'm the CEO of PointGuard. PointGuard is a Charlotte-based real estate technology company, software business that provides building control system overlay technology, automated fault detection, predictive maintenance, comfort control, and airflow hygiene. So we do a lot of things with a lot of the data that comes off most control systems in buildings, which is already a deployed technology. We also work with sensors as well to integrate sensors, smart meters into our overall interface. So with that in mind, we've been out as a multi-layered solution trying to get adaptation, and we've offered pilots. So to level set here, just trying to get this thing to work. It's not working for some reason. Hold on, there we go. The current real estate environment is governed really about three things: money, time, and of course our technology. The money we found at least that the real estate industry and construction industry is very ROI driven in sometimes a very simplistic way. Paybacks are focused on intensely, as well as time. I mean, we're seeing our real estate teams are busier than ever with repopulation. There's a lot more complexity in buildings, at least the ones we talk to, and more issues. And then lastly, we have a lot of new technology. As we all know, we're here today because of that. I think the thing I just point out there is you have a lot of competitor claims and buyer confusion. So in many respects, there's a fair amount of atrophy. And then you have what I call the real issue, which is that getting real estate companies to make decisions is difficult. Someone told me once there was Moore's adaptation curve, and then behind the late adopters and every other technology, that the curve for real estate begins. And so even the early movers in real estate are behind late adopters and other technologies. So it is an issue to get folks to make decisions about trying new technologies, even if they know that it could benefit them or benefits them in other aspects of their lives. So Navitas Smart Paper said that this is one of the biggest issues we have today. And I'm sure anyone on this call can relate in terms of getting the ball rolling, getting through the noise, getting through the time, getting the money, differentiating yourself from competitors. And so from there, we come to the pilot. So when we think about pilots, obviously this is the definition. It's not even the first definition of pilot. It's not the pilot of a boat, a plane, or a car. But further down the road, you'll see the idea of an experiment. And that's why we use the term. I find it interesting that we use it that way. Maybe it comes from TV pilots, but that's the term we use in business as well. In many cases, pilots are dealing with a full implementation of a technology, usually over a period of time, a year or more, or a year or less, but usually a year thereabouts, to understand the full value of a pilot of real estate technology. And I asked myself, why do we do pilots? Why is that what we choose to do? I think a lot of us, certainly I believe, that the customer needs to use our product or have immersion in the product to appreciate it. Maybe that's a little bit of feature beating. It's what we were taught. I know I was taught and learned that the way to sell is to get someone to do a pilot. I've always heard the term, and many here I've heard used it at Shadow, land and expand strategies. Get a foothold, get one, and then expand from there. We certainly think about our customers that way. And then, of course, sell through resistance, leading a horse to water, not being too proud to beg. I mean, just get one. Just try one. That could be a budget issue. When we all like a full implementation. So pilots is that a way we think our customers can kind of do a bite size. What's usually missing in a lot of pilots are defined goals. What is the win? What is the metric of success? Oftentimes, it's almost a breathless, they were doing a pilot. We're so happy. Sometimes there's not a timeline really where success is actually achieved. Oftentimes, success can be achieved before sort of a standard contract duration. And then oftentimes we don't determine what is the next step if we're successful. So a lot of these upfront contract type concepts are often missing as well. We're just happy to have a pilot. Some of the issues, though, that come from pilots is obviously the time frame, typically a contract period of some sort, uncertain outcomes, either fails or it works. If you put yourself in the seat of your customer, is this going to work? That is what they're thinking. During that time, there could be additional tech advancement. They may have to do more than one to evaluate technology in a particular sector of real estate tech. There could be onboarding delays. We've heard some of our competitors have gotten pilots, but then it took them a while to implement. And there are often hidden costs, as we know, that the real estate teams have to get more involved than was actually sold. This is the unspoken gossip that's out there in our industry amongst real estate and even construction groups about what we deliver to them. This is what they're saying behind our backs. This is why they resist us. This is why there's slow to no decision making, which is not good for our industry. We interviewed a few prop tech investors. One said, this is coming to the wayside, obviously making the point about the advancement of technology. I even talked to KP about this, and his real beef with pilots is that there's just not that upfront goal setting, and so lots of times they don't deliver. There's ambiguous metrics that then create ambivalence about pilots, not only with your company but in our whole industry. So we've said, well, pilots may not be the only tool you have. We have one other tool. We have case studies. So hey, look over here. There's other people's data. Look at that as a way forward. You don't have to do a pilot. Just believe the case study. And there again, I think most of us are not going to buy something based on what another person says, especially at a professional level. I think case studies are table stakes, but you have either a pilot or a case study, and there are no other tools. And we know that you're without using the technology, you can't see how it'll succeed. This was an interesting correlation. So promising someone that it works with someone else's buildings that may not be your type of building, there's really no way around success in technology implementation and experimentation without some application of that technology. So case studies, pilots have a lot of issues, in my opinion, and that's what I'm kind of proffering out to the community here. Case studies really don't get the job done. So what other options might we have? There's a good example. I forgot this slide was in here. Would you buy a car without test driving it? I guess people do some of that more these days if it's a car you know, but driving a car is usually something you've done a model before you buy it. So our approach that we've been thinking about is doing something with a little less time, 30 days or shorter, where there's a way to see the technology in a short amount of time without tying up the resources, and having more of a taste of versus a pilot. Making sure they use their own data, so that they can be clear that the technology in question will be useful. It's not someone else's data, it's their data, a short amount of time, and a smaller investment. Now, it doesn't necessarily obviate the issues around maybe some hidden costs or some onboarding issues, but selling a bite-sized taste of application may be a better way forward, maybe without over-promising and allowing someone to just see what it might look like on a building that they know very well in an environment they understand without a whole year or a full contract period. And maybe at a price that is manageable and doesn't require the level of investment that is typical with a pilot. Maybe even a number that is within the range of budgetary authority for many property managers or facility managers of those making decisions, and even at a level where if they make that budgetary decision on their own, then they can use the pilot data to sell more internally and get more buy-in, or because of the price, apply it to more buildings at one time in a cluster. So those are some of the ways we think about when we're thinking about things here at PointGuard. And we came up with something called the snapshot. And just to give you an example of how we try to solve it, we try to look at just 30 days of data. We can take that data in 5 different ways so we can avoid some of the sort of permanent onboarding issues that come with our technology, although we're able to do it very quickly. We lower the cost to a very de minimis amount on a relative basis for the budgetary needs of the folks we talk to. And what we don't necessarily do is let them use the technology that we have, but we allow them to really get a sense of the value that it would bring, to see their building the way our technology sees it, to really understand some of the high-level opportunities in the building without giving away the value of our software. An example here is in this particular front page, we're telling them how much energy they can save within the sense of the mechanical waste in the building, the level of comfort issues that are in the building, and the amount of data we've delivered. We also let them see all the equipment that they have in their building plotted against 2 performance axes. They don't know which ones they are, but that's their building. They get a pretty clear sense that there's real opportunity using our software. Obviously, we would have an overlay when we presented this to a customer. And then lastly, we have one other snapshot where we allow them to see how their building is performing as it relates to airflow. And of course, that's in conformance with ASHRAE and what's going on with pathogen prevention inside the buildings. I mean, ultimately, this is a form of a benchmark as well. So one thing about shorter pilots is they can represent benchmarking. I had a large property portfolio manager tell me that the benchmarking comes first and then everything else, and that even includes technology. So one way to think about a shorter pilot is a form of a benchmark for what you do. and a way to get sort of intellectual release to move forward. I think that's human nature. So, given that I'm bringing up the caboose here today, we're going to wrap it up. But I just think that there's something to think about here for the whole space that we're in. Pilots are perceived as monetary and time commitments with hidden costs, maybe overpromising and under-delivering. It has a limitation feature embedded in it. That's just the fact. Case studies are not the software, or it's not the buildings that are being used by the customer you're talking to. It's someone else's building. And just like a car, you wouldn't necessarily drive a car without ever having driven it at all. So the thought experiment is, does your software, does your solution have an option to it that isn't a pilot? And if we came up with those more broadly in our industry, where we have quicker and faster adaptation. So that's really it. I'm going to be a little short, but that's really what I want to talk about tonight.
Thank you, Shannon. And since we do have a few minutes, I think if you're willing, we can open it up to questions that people can just go ahead and drop in the Q&A. And then we'll give it a minute. And if no one has any questions, we can wrap up this track. I think there's a couple of other tracks still going on. So after this wraps up, if you want to head over to the design track, please feel free to do so.
Great. Well, I appreciate being a part of this. I think it's a great thing to be doing.